Good evening. Welcome to Kenya News Update today. I'm your host, and we're beginning with a major development in the nation's push toward a cleaner future. The Kenyan government has officially launched a nationwide rollout of distinctive green number plates for electric vehicles. This isn't just a new coat of paint for your car. It's the centerpiece of a sweeping e-mobility strategy aimed at transforming Kenya's transport sector, reducing carbon emissions, and positioning the country as a regional leader in green technology. But as with any major policy shift, this move comes with significant questions about cost, infrastructure, and its true impact on the average Kenyan. Tonight, we take a deep dive into this electric revolution on our roads. We'll examine the policy's ambitious goals, the stark challenges it must overcome, and the heated debate it has sparked among economists, environmentalists, and everyday citizens. What does this green plate actually represent? A visionary leap forward, or a symbolic gesture that overlooks deeper economic realities? Let's unpack it all. First, let's understand the policy itself. The new regulations mandate that all fully electric vehicles, or EVs, must be registered with these vibrant green license plates. The plates serve an immediate practical purpose. They allow for easy identification by law enforcement and, crucially, by municipal authorities who are now required to provide special privileges. These perks include exemption from parking fees in public spaces, access to dedicated EV parking and charging zones, and in some counties being proposed, the use of bus lanes during off-peak hours. The government's message is clear: we want to make owning an electric vehicle not just environmentally friendly, but also more convenient and cost-effective than sticking with petrol or diesel. The policy is backed by the National Climate Change Action Plan and aligns with President William Ruto's administration's stated commitment to a green industrial revolution. The vision extends beyond private cars. The government is also offering incentives for the importation of electric buses, motorcycles, and three-wheelers, aiming to electrify the entire public transport ecosystem, known as the matatu sector. Proponents argue this is a critical step for a country that, despite its low industrial output, suffers from severe air pollution in urban centers like Nairobi, largely due to vehicle emissions from older, inefficient engines. However, to grasp the scale of the challenge, we must look at the current landscape. The adoption of electric vehicles in Kenya, and indeed across Africa, is in its absolute infancy. The numbers tell a sobering story. While exact national figures are fluid, industry estimates suggest there are only a few thousand fully electric vehicles on Kenyan roads today, dwarfed by the millions of internal combustion engine vehicles. The primary barrier is, unsurprisingly, cost. A new electric car in Kenya can cost 2 to 3 times more than a comparable petrol model. Even with the removal of import duty and value-added tax on fully electric vehicles, a key part of the government's incentive package, the upfront price remains prohibitively high for the vast majority of Kenyans. The secondary, and equally daunting, challenge is infrastructure. Public charging stations are scarce, concentrated almost entirely in Nairobi and a few other major towns. For a country where long-distance travel is common, range anxiety, the fear of a battery running out before reaching a charger, is a very real concern that the current network does not adequately address. Critics point out that rolling out green plates is the easy part. Building a nationwide, reliable, and affordable charging grid is the multi-billion shilling task that lags far behind. This brings us to the core of the debate. Supporters of the e-mobility push see it as an essential, forward-looking investment. They argue that Kenya must leapfrog the dirty phases of development, just as it did with mobile banking through M-Pesa. They highlight the long-term economic benefits, reduced spending on imported fossil fuels, which strains the country's foreign exchange reserves, and the potential to create new green manufacturing and servicing jobs. The health argument is also powerful. The World Health Organization consistently flags Nairobi's air quality as a major concern. Transitioning to electric public transport could directly improve respiratory health for millions. Furthermore, with Kenya's electricity generation mix heavily leaning toward renewable sources like geothermal, hydro, and wind, charging an EV has a much lower carbon footprint than in countries reliant on coal or gas power plants. For them, the green plates are a bold statement of intent, a signal to investors and citizens alike that Kenya is serious about its green future. On the other side of the debate, skeptics and opponents voice profound concerns. Their first argument is one of priority and equity. They ask, in an economy where millions are grappling with the high cost of living, Where does subsidizing expensive electric cars for the wealthy rank on the national agenda? The tax breaks on EV imports, they contend, represent a significant loss of government revenue that could be used to bolster public services like healthcare. Speaking of healthcare, let's consider a stark comparison. The government is actively promoting the prevention of cervical cancer through HPV vaccination, a critically important initiative. Yet, the funding and public attention seem disproportionately weighted. While we champion green plates for EVs, we must remember that cervical cancer is estimated to claim the lives of 3,591 Kenyan women every year. These are not just statistics. They are mothers, daughters, and pillars of families. The question posed by critics is about resource allocation. Are we focusing on symbolic environmental policies for the few, while foundational health challenges for the many remain underfunded? The economic critique runs deeper. Some analysts warn that the policy, in its current form, may simply create a new dependency on imported electric vehicles and their batteries, primarily from China. Instead of spending forex on petrol, they argue, we may end up spending it on expensive EV components with little local value addition. The true sustainable path, according to this view, would involve massive investment in improving and electrifying the existing public transport system, the matatus and buses that move the masses, rather than incentivizing private electric car ownership. There's also the issue of the electricity grid itself. Can it handle a sudden surge in demand from thousands of vehicles plugging in? Without a parallel upgrade in national generation and distribution capacity, widespread EV adoption could lead to increased blackouts or reliance on diesel generators, completely negating the environmental benefit. Let's zoom out and look at the global and regional context. Kenya's move is not happening in a vacuum. Several other African nations, including Rwanda, South Africa, and Egypt, are experimenting with their own e-mobility incentives. However, the scale and specificity of Kenya's Green Plate program make it one of the most visible. Internationally, the transition to EVs is accelerating, but it's facing its own headwinds, including concerns about mining for battery minerals and the environmental cost of battery disposal. Kenya's policy attempts to navigate this complex landscape. The government has partnered with private companies to start local assembly of electric buses and motorcycles, a move aimed at addressing the job creation and import dependency critiques. Pilot projects for electric matatus are underway in Nairobi, but the success of these initiatives is far from guaranteed and depends on sustained investment and consumer uptake. So, where does this leave us? The rollout of green number plates is undoubtedly a landmark moment. It's a concrete policy tool designed to catalyze change, but it exists within a web of much larger systemic issues. The debate ultimately hinges on a classic development dilemma, balancing long-term visionary goals with immediate, pressing needs. Is it prudent to use state resources to incentivize a technology that is currently accessible only to a tiny elite, in the hope that it will eventually trickle down and transform the entire market? Or should those resources be channeled into solving more basic infrastructure and social welfare problems first? There is no easy answer. The pro-EV camp would say that waiting for perfect conditions means never starting, and that the climate crisis demands bold action now. The skeptical camp would counter that policies must be rooted in the current economic reality of the majority of Kenyans to be legitimate and effective. As this policy unfolds in the coming months and years, several key metrics will indicate its success or failure. We'll be watching the growth in EV registrations, but more importantly, the expansion of the charging network into rural and peri-urban areas. We'll monitor the price of electric vehicles relative to incomes. We'll observe whether the electric matatu pilots can scale and become financially sustainable without perpetual subsidy. And we'll listen to the public discourse. Does this green revolution feel inclusive, or does it deepen perceptions of a divide between a green elite and the rest? The green plate is now a symbol on our roads. Its meaning, whether it represents a prosperous, clean future for all, or a well-intentioned but misaligned priority, will be defined not by the policy document, but by its execution and its tangible impact on Kenyan lives. The journey has begun, but the road ahead is long and full of turns. For now, the debate is charged, and rightly so. The direction Kenya takes will resonate far beyond our borders. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We want to hear from you. What's your take on the green number plates and Kenya's e-mobility push? Is it the right path forward, or are there more urgent priorities? Share your thoughts in the comments below. For continued in-depth coverage of this and all the stories shaping our nation, Remember to subscribe to Kenya News Update today.